Yeah, yesterday I was telling everybody that I was bored to bits as far as the day went, and yes, I was. But you know, this is what happens in the Philippines. Sometimes you get to a point where nothing happens, and it's something you. So I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not bored with life. When I say bored, I don't mean bored and I want to take my own life type of thing. No, I mean bored with nothing much going on here. And it's easy to get that feeling sometimes. Especially I would say in the province, it's one of the drawbacks. You know, things do go at a certain speed. You can't do anything about that. And sometimes you just absolutely can't get anything done. Even if you really want to, all you can do is sit back and observe nothing going on around you. That's basically it. Today probably will be another one of those days. We don't have the builders working this week at all. Mainly, Rich is managing the budget. You know, so I give her the money, but she's got other things she's paying as well, and other things she's doing as well. So that to some extent, and there's a big cost to buy the sawali, which is the next big. Well, it's not a big cost by some of the costs we've already put in here, but she doesn't want to spend too much money this week. So next week she's going to do that. That's the big one. But in saying that, there was still some cement work she could have had done. Some bamboo finishing in place she could have had done. And of course, there's always varnishing to do as well. So, yeah, it's not that there's no work that doesn't need continuing. I've made a decision, and that's why you'll see furniture starting to move in here already. Some bits of stuff are coming in here because I'm saying we're in here the next month, regardless. End of this month. End of March, we're in here. Regardless of where we are. So that's where we are. I think it's yeah, we've got power in here, we've got water in here, we've got everything in here. So I'm putting, that'll force things to get done a little bit quicker anyway. Yeah, that is a beautiful bougainvillea. We just need to nurture it and direct it in the right direction. And what I want to do is get bougainvillea down the one side, all the way, different colours actually, along the one side fence. Yeah, I could move in here now. I've got, gosh, come on, guys. This is luxury compared with what many people have in the world to live in. Electricity, water, roof over your head, floor. What more do you need? No, we've got to push this along now, and the best way is pushing it along and start moving in. That's what I said to Richie. She's not very keen on that, but I said, well, I'll go. And actually, I can wake up and do things as well, get on with a bit of varnishing myself, things like that. I think that's it. I think that's me. That's what's got me into the state of mind yesterday. I was just watching paint dry, as it were, and that's the feeling, not literally. And you've got to sometimes, I'm not in the Philippines. I'm talking about in the UK. People just do it all the time until they burn out, of course. That's in the West. And here it's the reverse to a large degree. Yeah, I don't think boredom is anything you should concern yourself with other than do something about it. That's what I would say. You need to consider, okay, what shall I do? What can I do? What's going on over there? Oi, what have you found? Oh, you found something else. Found a little den up here that they hide in and they play in among the wood. That's where you find the snakes. You got a little bone. I see. Music is playing again. I have to get my music out. I think, what shall we start off every morning with? What about Colonel Bogey? Bridge over the River Kwai. Actually, I remember back in the early 80s, similar kind of setting. I was branch manager of a large supermarket in a place called Nelspruit, which is in the countryside of South Africa. It was then called the Low Veld. It was a subtropical climate. That's why it's Low Veld. It was lower down, and it was Africa in the true sense of the word, of how many would imagine it. Well, where a lot of game is, obviously there's the Kruger National Park is in that area, along with many other parks as well, game parks. And obviously wildlife is abundant, you know, snakes and monkeys and everything running around even in your garden. And we lived in White River, which is just a little bit north of Nelspruit, so that's where we had the house. It was a company house actually, and we used to have this great large terrace on the front of the house, just overlooking to trees, and you know, nature was all around us. But it was funny, you know, being younger, nature was sort of, the nature fix didn't really come to me so much then. It came to me a bit later. So I would be quite happily sitting on my patio. It reminds me of this music here next door, with the younger generations, Rich's cousins, they just, you know, play their music every day. And I would do the same. I would have Fleetwood Mac on, for example. What's the name of their record? Was it Rumours? I can't remember the LP. The record, I was playing records. It was records in those days. I mean, there were tapes as well about that time, but it was particularly records I was still having. Don't know what the dogs are doing now. So yeah, and I'd have that music blaring away, and neighbours would come in and join me. and comment on my nice music. They were probably really saying, "We should turn the frigging stuff up," but they weren't saying that. Far too polite. I'm very good neighbours there actually in White River. And yeah, it was a good. Life was great. You know, life was. You know, I used to. White River was not far from Nelspruit. Oh, how far would it be? 10 minutes, 15 minutes drive? 15 minutes probably, roughly. And it's an easy road, just winds down through the mountains. It was higher up. White River's higher than Nelspruit, so you came down through what's the name of that road? Well, that road would go all the way through to Barberton, and it would continue up towards, well, you go towards Bushbuck Ridge, that area, but you know, Pilgrim's Rest and all that area. And of course, you would go through White River and then bear right to the Kruger National Park. But it was a pleasant. I used to think when I was driving into work every morning into Nelspruit, I would be driving in this beautiful countryside. It was literally just farms around me, and there was one sort of area I'd go through where they had a kind of a area where tourists would stop and buy gifts, you know, native carvings and stuff like that. And there was a little coffee cafe there that would sell breakfasts and things. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful setting, done with bamboo and African thatch type of thing. And that was my journey into work. You know, I'd be a young guy in my 20s still, mid-20s, I guess, roughly. Yeah, and it was a fantastic time in my life. It wasn't the most challenging by any means. It was actually, I look back at it now, I mean, I held some fantastic positions in senior executive roles in Africa and in other countries of the world as well. So it wasn't by anything the best paid job I had or anything like that, but it was a nice job. I had a company house, a company car, a nice enough salary, lived in a beautiful part of the world. My drive into work was stressless, you know. It was absolutely, and my drive back, what was the name of the, as I got to close to Nelspruit, it would then drop down from, used to be called the Drum Rock Hotel. I don't know what it's called now. It was a hotel, again, mainly geared up for the tourist trade, I guess, which wasn't big in those days. There weren't a lot of tourists coming to Africa, really. And then it would wind down, it would go down, it would drop quite quickly then into Nelspruit itself. And even in Nelspruit, it was the old store. There's a new store there now. It was the old store, but it was a store that was absolutely incredible. It was well maintained, of course. Before I got there, it was a well maintained business, and I was surprised to get this store when I was appointed. I remember I was on the East Rand, the only English guy for miles. and I remember being called in. I'd had a couple of 2 or 3 stores by that stage. I was manager of Brackpan store, and I've been troubleshooting a couple of stores as well. And North Mid Mall was the one before that, where I told you about, I think. Also, all these stores were on the East Rand. Hey, stop it! Ah! Yes, Bronya bullying a puppy. She's a puppy herself. And so when I got this store, I was called into Commissioner Street in Johannesburg by Mike Palmer, who was the divisional operations director. I thought, oh gosh, what have I done this time? You know, so it was called in. The regional manager was there, a guy called George Speece. who didn't. Anyway, I won't say anything about him. He was a good guy. He was all right. He had a brother who was also in senior management and his brother actually had been the manager of Nell Spate, and George used to talk about how great this store was when he was my regional manager in East Rand. He would talk about Nell Spate. It was a beautiful store. It was stuck out in the countryside. It was surrounded by it was a lifestyle. Having this store was a lifestyle. If you were a branch manager, it was one of the stores to get. It had its problems because obviously it was a long way from head office, and in those days you didn't have technology like you have today. You had to manage stock manually. You had to manage everything manually. So you had fairly large staff complements in those days compared with today. And it was a busy store. This was a busy, very busy store. And product would be road transported in. That's what it was basically. We had suppliers, direct deliveries, and stuff coming through our central distribution warehouse, which didn't work at the best of times very well, but that's what we had. And it was a challenge as far as managing go. It took time, effort to manage it. It became I had it as one of the most profitable store in the group, large group, the Checkers group in those days. And I can remember even the MD of the company at the time, Gordon Utian. I believe he's passed away now, but he was the MD when I was there, and he phoned up to compliment me on my end of year results, which I was quite surprised to get. No, not really surprised in the sense that Gordon Newton, he was a good, nice guy. He was a approachable sort of character. And that was the other thing. When having a store there, you would find all the executives who would be having weekends in the Kruger National Park or other game reserves, or having relaxing holidays in the Lowveld, would all be popping into my store to buy their wine and their meat and charcoal and stuff like that. So it was a store that got a lot of attention from the directors. They were always visiting it, but always in good moods, because they're always chilled out and relaxed. By the time you got to Nell Spate, as soon as you get to Waterville Bovin and Waterville Onda, you've dropped down into the low veld from the high veld, literally, and your mind, by the time you get to Nell Spate, having seen you go driving through the lush bush and you seeing the monkeys running across the road and into the trees next to you, and just the fresh air, the air smell was different. You were relaxed. It was a chilled out environment. It was that's the only way I can describe it. So life took on a new meaning. I remember my father didn't come out to Nell Spate. We took him out there later when I was in a different function, not living there. But my mother made two or three times she came out to stay in Nell Spate and White River with us. And it was an experience that she really loved and talked about as well. It was I can only describe it as a great life. It was back in the 1980s, as it was called the Low Veld. Now it's called Mpumalanga is the new name for the area. Mpumalanga, that's the region. So Nell Spate is regarded as a city in the region. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a city. Well, when I was there, it was sort of one road in and one road out, basically. And It grew up, I think, Barberton, which is a town just south of Nelspruit, heading more towards Swaziland on that side of Nelspruit. You would, that had a gold find there many years ago. Nelspruit tended to grow from that area as well. Nelspruit, so as you go into Nelspruit, you go straight through Nelspruit, you go towards Mozambique, coming from Johannesburg, so going east. And so if you go south, you're going towards Barberton. Okay, and if you go north, you're heading towards White River, going up the side of the Kruger National Park. And obviously behind you, where you've just come from, is Johannesburg, Pretoria, that area. I think the drive in those days, roughly from Johannesburg to Nelspruit, was about 2.5 hours, roughly. Probably a little bit more. But the lifestyle, the people friendly, all people, the white people and the black people, the African people and the European people, had a different state of mind with their lives generally. In fact, the guy next door to me and his family, a very lovely couple, I can't remember their name, Ray and, gosh, what was her name? And she had two daughters, Danelle and, I remember Danelle, and a younger sister, and a son called Bert. It's an unusual name for a young guy like Bert. My grandfather was called Bert, and well, unusual name for a young guy. They were South African. Her father was a ranger in the Kruger National Park, and so they had many stories to talk about in terms of the wildlife. He was in the scrap metal business, his own business. He had his own business, and it was based in Barberton. So he would drive to Barberton every day. I mean, that's where he was working. He won't be around now. He won't be alive now. He was sort of close to he was my mother's age. So they were quite a bit older than we were. I had my three sons then, Paul, Anthony and Johnny. Johnny was very, very young. Anthony and Paul were, well, toddlers still, toddler age groups. So they'll vaguely remember White River. And it was a time of there were challenges as well. Of course there were, as there is in any life. I can remember being in hospital with a tropical disease there. I booked myself out. I didn't want to stay there. I was still involved in my business, my work. What I was involved in, I booked myself out. And after the second day, although I wasn't feeling great, I still felt I had to get back to work. And I looked terrible apparently. And I got to work, and then my doctor happened to be in the store shopping, and he saw me. He said, "What are you doing here? You should be in hospital." Yeah, that was life in those days. What else? Yeah, we also I had a great boss there, regional manager. His name was Johan Holstasen. Great guy. His office was based in where was he? His office was based in Middelburg. That's it, Middelburg. Which you had to go through from Johannesburg. You would go through Highveld, Witbank, and then you would go through Middleburg and then go out into the bush towards Nelspruit. Good 2 hours, 2 hour drive it was. Very unorthodox sort of character, typical Dutch Afrikaans guy, big guy. He used to look, in his younger days. He was a rugby. He played in the. I think he played in the Springbok Colts at one stage in rugby. Big guy. There was always a lot of swearing going on in the meetings. The regional meetings we'd have every month in Middleburg, or no, usually we had those in Whitbank. And Dan Fencer, one of my old work colleagues and friends, who I'm still a friend with today, who'll be watching this video no doubt. He was the branch manager of Whitbank, and I was the branch manager of Nelspruit. But we run into life in other situations around the country as well. Many years later, well, in other companies we joined and grew. So, and we still have stories to share now. But then Dan would have been in his late 20s. He's a couple of years older than I am. In his late 20s to my mid 20s, I guess. It was that sort of time frame. But yeah, I can remember those meetings back in Nelspruit. The philosophy was in Checkers at the time that if you're English, you wouldn't get a store that I've got, because I don't speak Afrikaans, and it's very much an Afrikaans country. And I also, I just wouldn't fit in, being a POM, being English. So it was very amazing to get this appointment store. The point is, all my colleagues were Afrikaans speaking, basically. So it was so when I joined the region, there was it wasn't a big region. There was about 6 or 7. We were a big store. Most of them were big stores, apart from one, because they're all country stores out in. They supported the whole town in terms of their provisions and things. But they're all Afrikaans brought up people in the eastern Transvaal region. It was Eastern Transvaal region it was called. And then suddenly I get appointed and I'm English. So all the meetings had to be held in English from then on. So I don't know if that may be popular among my colleagues or not. I don't know really. But Dan's always bloody Inglesman, and many people. Tony Smith, Johan Foss. Johan Foss is still around on my. Tony Smith, unfortunately, passed away. I'm trying to think who else I've got on Facebook in that area, in that time frame. Johan, yeah. Don, yeah. I can't remember the others now. I mean, I remember Dave. Oh gosh, what was this? Smart? No. I can't remember the guy in Middleburg who struggled a little bit. What was his name? Gosh, I can't remember. Dan will remember his name. But yeah, good times meeting. And then when I'd have a store visit from my boss as well, Johan. He would come, and I mean, we'd get there probably about mid-morning. We'd have a quick coffee, a quick walk around the floor, and then he would say, right, lunch, and we'd go to the local steakhouse, and he'd order lunch, and we'd have 1 bottle of wine, 2 bottles of wine, 3. He's just driven all the way to Nelspruit from Middleburg in his Mercedes, and I say, shouldn't you stay here the night, Jan? I mean, we can put you up or book you in, whatever. No, he's fine, and he'll, there he was off. There's no drink and drive rules in those days, but the roads are treacherous. You come off the roads, you're dead, because you trees and embankments and drops, long drops on the edge of mountainsides and things. Unfortunately for Johan as well, that's exactly what happened to him. Coming home one night, he came off the road and died. After I had left the region, I was then in another company in Cape Town. So I got the news from my brother-in-law who joined who I brought into the company. I mean, I brought my brother-in-law across from England, Ireland actually, because my first wife was Irish. And that's another story to tell. But he was, I got him into a competitor company called Pick and Pay. Never been in retail his whole life, but I grilled him and drilled him into what he should say in the interview, and he became a produce expert initially. And Holstasen, once he heard I had a brother-in-law in Pick and Pay, and he's like, get him in our company. And I said, but he's family. No, fuck that. Get him in our, it was, and he'd already taken somebody else from Pick and Pay. What was that guy's name? Someone called Pete Crocombe, who was a fruit and veg specialist, because Checkers were expanding in those days. And he said, yeah, Bob, great produce manager, knows his stuff. I thought to myself, shit, if you only knew how I had to drill him with knowledge to get him through the interview. But anyway, he joined Checkers and he did all right. He was manager of Barberton eventually, and then manager of Barberton. Then he became a manager in Southern, in Cape Town. When we moved to Cape Town, he followed us and got a job in Worcester, which is not too far from Cape Town. Far enough, but not too far. And then eventually he moved to Fishhook. He became a manager in Fishhook. I think the point I'm trying to make of this little story really is life generally in foreign countries as a Brit is complicated, and you've got to understand the how you fit into society. And coming here as a Atari, if you've spent your whole life living and working in anywhere, Salford or Chorley or wherever in the UK, used to the UK culture, and you suddenly say, right, I'm retiring, I'm moving, I'm coming here. You've got to adapt, you've got to learn, and you've got to understand. It's not the same, as no country is the same. It's not like being on holiday either. It is like something entirely different, and you've got to just get into the experiences of it. I'm fortunate because I spent my entire life from an early age living in different countries. Lived in Africa and got to love it and still do love it. You can tell by how I talk about it. Living in the Middle East, again, fantastic environment, loved it. I mean, all these countries were difficult to adjust to initially, but loved it. And coming here into this environment, yeah, it was easy as anything. But I can imagine how difficult it would be for many. Just the climate, just the way things happen here, it can be very difficult. So all these people that come here that have been here for 6 months or even 5 years or 6 years, I would say, we're all different. You got to come here with an open mindset, and you got to just embrace it. Don't challenge it. Go with the flow. And learn how it works, and then you'll be fine. But if you come here and want to challenge it and try and maintain a sense of your own home comforts, it'll be more difficult. Yes, you've got to have home comforts. I'm not saying don't have them. We have them. Most of my home comforts are in here. I mean, I do have a few things that I brought with me, and that's what I have. But when you come here with that sense of excitement and be prepared for that endurance.
Come here, Izzy. Come here, Izzy. Come here, Izzy. Wait, wait, wait.
Yeah, the message I'm trying to get across for people coming to live in the Philippines is to try and give them an experience of, a general experience, a broad experience of how one should try and meet expectations, let's call it. I think that's quite key. Because many people come here and they spend years thinking about it, planning it, and then when they actually get here, it doesn't come up to expectations. You know, they've looked at videos and from others who have come here, and they've really, you know, realized it's not for them. It could be the heat, it could be the food, it could be just the environment, the way things happen. And that's what I'm trying to get across, how you've got to, you know, adapt to this type of way of life. Mainly, it's in here for you to deal with that. And that's what I want to try and get across in this video. For example, just building a house here. You know, this is something, a little project Richie and I have done. It's something we could walk away from, quite honestly, and come back to years later. But, you know, it's something we've done. It's a budget exercise. And let me tell you a little bit more about that. I said to Richie, we're going to build a house. You know, I want to have a house that is different from anything I've lived in before, in UK or Dubai or Africa or wherever I've lived. I want something that's better than any of those things, without breaking the bank. You know, we tend to put money into a property that we've either put our life savings into the whole property, or we've taken out a mortgage to buy a place, so we're paying it over a long period of time. That type of buying a property. Now, this is neither of those things. First of all, you know, we're paying for this as we go, as we do it. We've been working on this project now for just over a year. We've nearly completed it. I'm talking about moving into it, as you've heard already, in the next month, within the next few weeks, because we've got electric and water in already. So there's a few things. I mean, if we have to rough it for a little while, this isn't roughing it, because most people, you know, to have a roof over your head, a floor raised above ground level, to be powered up with electric, powered up with water, and have everything we need to be comfortable in here. Why, you know, we can still continue, and it's part of the adventure of living in the tropics. So, yeah, that's my deadline. I've said to Richie, regardless of where it is now, I'm moving in next month, regardless. We'll still carry on with the build, what needs to be done, but we've broken the back of it. As you see, we've got furniture and things already moving in here already. You know, that's because it's cluttering up our other house, and I just want to get things into sort of an order. Anyhow, the other, so that was one aspect of this house. The other, in terms of keeping it something different, giving it a fun factor, and keeping it within a budget that we can afford without digging into savings or affecting us in any economic way whatsoever. Secondly, I wanted a house that was made traditionally as much as possible using local material. Okay, this bamboo here, we took it out of the field. I mean, this was, we obviously we paid for it to be taken out of the field, and we treated it, and we cut it. We still got plenty of it, and we built a lot of bamboo feature into this house to make it the same with timber. You know, we got various different types of timber in this house for strength, and that's the other key point about this house. I didn't want a concrete block and steel house on concrete foundations. You know, the whole thing. I accept the fact we're going to have some safety factors in here because we're in a typhoon region of the world, and we've got to take those things into account as well. So we've got steel concrete foundation on stilts, as it were. We've raised the house to this height. It's above my waist height. I'll show you now. There we are. I'm standing on the ground, and this is the floor height. We aren't prone to floods here, but we've got a river that does meander around us. And we've got flood breaks and things here, flood defences, but this is just an extra precaution should we have something unusual happen. There has been a flood. There was a flood here about 10 or 12 years ago due to extreme weather conditions. It got to about half of this height. So we thought, well, let's double it. Let's put ourselves in a position where, you know, we can avoid those kind of things if at all possible. Now, although most of the house is construction of timber and bamboo, we have obviously got concrete then in the foundations, and I'll show you that quickly. So the core structure, the main structure of the house, is standing on this type of foundation. These foundations are concrete with steel, and they go down a metre underground as well, just over a metre as well, solid. Okay, standing on solid timber. This, what you can see around it, is just extra paraffin and treatment for termites and things like that. We then have secondary foundations, also concrete with steel, with bamboo, keeping floor from falling down, let's call it. See here, these are for more supporting the floor generally. Again, time has taken to put this in place. One of the key points about building with timber and building with wood in the tropics is you've got to be aware of of nature around you. And termites is one key area. Termites eat into wood extremely quickly, so you have to treat your wood. You have to maintain, you have to have the right hardwood. Same with bamboo, and the right treatment on bamboo. So you've also got to take into account timber is not, and bamboo is not the cheapest form of building material anyway. Concrete blocks and steel are the cheapest form of building. We could have built this house much cheaper, same design, but cheaper in concrete. Could have done. It would have looked, well, for me, that's not what I wanted. I wanted a timber house, a house that breathed, a house that moved, a house that wouldn't be like a tinderbox if there was no air conditioning inside. So this house breathes. This house has air movement. This house feels alive. And timber houses have that ability, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want a tombstone. I wanted a house that breathed. Now with a timber house, it will last. Bamboo is as strong as steel. Okay? Now, yeah, let me say that again. Bamboo has the strength of steel. Used properly, used effectively, it is extremely strong, very durable. It's also eco-friendly. You know, when you chop down a bamboo tree or plant, let's call it, it regrows. So, you know, it doesn't die, it regrows. So bamboo is a very user-friendly product in all aspects. It's strong, it's durable, and it really does a good job. The only problem with bamboo is you've got to have people who know how to work bamboo and the time taken in construction with bamboo. So bear all that in mind, of course, but great product to use. I did a lot of work on planning the bamboo aspect of the house because I wanted bamboo as a key feature of the property, inside and outside. So bamboo houses, you get some fantastic big design. This is very basic. You get some fantastic big designs. There's a guy building homes in Indonesia and places like Bali. Beautiful, large constructions that stand time. But you have to treat every 4 years or so, treating the bamboo, treating your timber, treating your lumber. You don't just ignore it and leave it. You let it, you know, you nurture it, spend time with it. But if you're living in a property, if you leave this and go away for years, come back, yeah, you're gonna need to spend fortunes on it then. But if you live in it and maintain it on a regular basis, every year or two, do a little bit more varnishing here, there. You can't over varnish. You can't over treat wood. The other good thing about wood is it can be replaced very easily. So the way we've designed this house, we've changed these timbers here, for example. Let me show you exactly what I mean when I say we changed these timbers. This post here, this post goes all the way through the concrete at the bottom, all the way up to the top. It's one of the main structures, not this on the side, this one here. We changed these one by one after we had the construction up because we wanted a more solid and finished looking timber on these pillars. Here's another one. So all the way through to the pillars, so down here, which go right into the concrete as well. So the main pillars, access to them is easy, and if we had to replace one, it's very easy to do that as well. So, and in fact, if any one of the kids later, I personally don't want to do that because I like wood and I like to live with wood. But if you wanted to suddenly say, okay, I'm going to put a steel frame in here because I'm going to be away for 6 years and I don't want to, you could do that. You could zap these out one by one and get some steel cut to the same size and zap that in. You could do that, of course. I wouldn't do it, but you could do it. That's how we've designed this house. Now I also want to point out some of the bamboo work, which is more cosmetic, but puts a finish to the house as well. Like here in the front, under the banister, which is all bamboo, apart from the timber frame, this sort of flare across the bottom all the way through, which gives it a nice bamboo finish. And again, it's been treated and is as solid as it can be. Also working down the sides, you can see. This here, this Sawali, this is going to be varnished. This is not finished. This is Sawali, which is a different type of reed. Sometimes you get Sawali with bamboo. I don't think this is bamboo, but this is what will get varnish. It's also a local material made. And then here we have the strip bamboo as well. So they're posts, and then they're split, pulled open, flattened out, soaked again, and then eventually put up with a bamboo frame around them as well. So that's basically how that works. Fantastic. And then here we have the whole half pieces of bamboo that we did for this one. We had these, again, we had the split initially here. Remember, I think you may have, when we were doing one of the early videos of the house starting, and I decided for cosmetic reasons, let's put this type on the front and on the back and the split on the sides, because this gives a nicer wooden cabin feel to the property, and it matches the banisters as well, which are bamboo. So that's why we've done that. Yeah, I just wanted to point out here as well, the ceiling will also be sawali as well. So on this this terrace, we have it's entertainment, sitting area and living dining area on this side, with plenty of open space here. Nice view over the fields behind you. On this side, we've got something else planned as well, which Richie is making the roll-up bamboo shades for the inside, which will roll down. So in the evening, okay, or when the weather's bad, you want to use this area constantly. I mean, it is well covered, as you can see. There's a great lean out over this anyway. So all these areas will have the roll down bamboo blinds on the inside, okay, and then on the outside there's a waterproof screen that rolls down as well, and so it just keeps the elements out when we have real significant. Come on, guys. Hey. Come here, you. Hey, come here. Come here. Ricky. Let's go. Coming into the Philippines, having things to keep you busy in retirement. I'm not talking about just in terms of Philippine retirees, people coming to the Philippines only to retire. I'm talking anywhere, even if you're staying in your own country. Finding things to do, getting up with a sense of purpose every morning is very, very important. Using your brain to do things you need to do, doesn't matter what it is, you know. Ideally, you want to do things that keep you healthy and fit. So doing things in the fresh air, doing things which involve a little bit of exercise, doing things that give you a responsibility, a sense of purpose. You know, could be looking after animals as well as looking after plants and other things. building, doing stuff, construction, whatever it is. I think it's very key that you have the sort of, if you're just going to sit in a bar or sit in a, you can only do that for so long, and then it's becoming not good for you at all. Going to a gymnasium and then a restaurant and a bar, you know, social. I mean, that's nice for a couple of weeks. Let's be realistic. But you really want to spend the rest of your life doing that? Is that what life is all about in the end? Traveling, yeah, I get the traveling bit. If you haven't done much traveling and you want to see a bit more of the world, then I think traveling's a good fix to have. Don't do that. Don't do that, please. Starting to take the... I'll take that away. Local reed brooms. Well, didn't we hit you with this? Leave it there. Leave it there. So yes, there's lots to see and do in the Philippines when it comes to travelling. I personally, for myself, travelling is not something, having done a lot of travelling in my entire life and been to many beautiful places when I've been working as well and taken time out to enjoy them. That's why, you know, one of the reasons why we're here. I mean, I know it's because it's Richie's home as well, largely, but it seemed a good choice. Now, if I'm going to do any travelling from here, yeah, I want to go back and show Richie Japan. She's never been to Japan, and it's some country I'd like to show her, as well as China. Many countries we can go to very easily here that aren't very far away as well, like Bali, Indonesia, Taiwan, which I've been to as well several times. Thailand, although Richie's been to Thailand and I've been to Thailand. Vietnam, been to Vietnam. Richie hasn't been, so we might go to Vietnam. Hanoi and do the northern part of Vietnam. Beautiful. Cambodia, I've never been to Cambodia, and neither has Richie, so that's a country that might be worth visiting in the future. When we've got everything settled here and we're happy in the environment and we can lock up and go for a while. So I want to go back to South Africa as well. I want to visit South Africa and take Richie there, show her the absolute magic of South Africa, and why it's so close to my heart as a place to live. Africa's diversity, I think, is, you know, the Philippines is quite similar all the way around. I mean, yes, I know certain parts of it are slightly different from north to south. I mean, it's a bit cooler in the north, in Baguio, compares with the south. But we're in one of the hottest parts of the Philippines, actually, right in the tropics. But there's not much difference in it. I mean, there are different dialects, language spoken in different Visaya compared with Tagalog and this kind of thing. But it is very similar vegetation-wise and everything else. In South Africa, you go from the north to the south. There is a significant difference in the landscape. Totally different, in fact. You know, you've traveled vast distances and you find yourself, it's a different world, it's a different country. It feels a different country. The climate is different, the people are different, the vegetation is different. You know, the Western Cape to where I was talking about the Lowveld, Mpumalanga, totally different, a different world, you know, different place. Both beautiful, both have their own characters and characteristics and things like, you know, the winelands of the Cape, the Western Cape, Stellenbosch, Paarl, Franschhoek, these kind of places. Going up the east coast from there, going, you know, towards Still Bay and these areas, George and Plettenberg Bay, these sort of places. Beautiful, beautiful coastal resorts. And going up the other way, going up the west coast towards Saldanha and Langebaan and further up the wild west coast of South Africa, which eventually takes you into another land the Skeleton Coast, as it is known. So yes, it's, you know, there are things to see in Africa which are quite diverse. Here there's not so much diversity, I don't think. Everyone plays their music loud wherever you go. Everyone, when you've seen one resort, you've seen them all. They love resorts here, and when you've been to one, you've been to all of them, in my view. Beaches are beautiful. Sea is lovely. Great diving in this area if you're into diving. I'm not particularly, but you know, not scuba diving anyway. A little bit of snorkeling. I've done a little bit of that, but I'm not into scuba diving or water skiing or things like that. I was too old when I got to the Western Cape. I was too old, but my sons were into surfing in the Western Cape, so they had the surfing fix, if you like. Yeah, gotta just learn to chill out and unwind, get away from the life of the Europe as we have it today. When you retire, if you spent your whole life in it, it's a challenge to get out of it. It is a challenge to get out of it because it's all you have become accustomed to. So it isn't, as you know, you've got to, having a holiday is one thing. Living in a new land is something totally different. What are we going to do, guys? We're going to go some for lunch. Shall we go see what Mum's doing? Time for lunch? Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? Let's go. Shall we? Come on. Come on, let's go.